Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Today's video is all about the one and only Carlton Leach and how he became a prominent member of West Ham's famous ICF mob. This channel is a place where we can all reminisce and share stories about the good old days of football, the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties and current day. To bring the facts to you and true incidents, I look at books written by proper football lads. I look at media articles and crime reports and put it all together and bring it to you to make your own mind up. If I do gather facts or stories from a book, I will promote that book and try and generate new interest for the author and hopefully generate a bit of income for football lads. Anyway, let's dive straight in. This is the story of Carlton Leach, in his own words. I was about 6 years old when my dad first took me to Upton Park to watch West Ham play. Perched on his shoulders, cheering on the lads for all I was worth. Marvellous, innocent childhood entertainment. Never did I dream that 10 years later I'd be running amok on the terraces as one of the most feared football hooligans in Britain, targeted by the police, hated by rival fans, dreaded at every ground country wide for mayhem that I caused. I suppose I was first hooked on football, and especially West Ham, when I stood wide-eyed on Green Street, Forest Gate after West Ham won the FA Cup in 1964, and watched the Hammers, open bus drive-through, cheering the crowds on their victory parade. I was up on Dad's shoulders for a better view of the conquering heroes, wearing West Ham's claret and blue scarf and waving a rattle and cheering away until I was hoarse. It was a magical day, and my dad could see that I'd caught the West Ham bug. He was a fanatical West Ham fan all his life. He was thrilled when I showed all the signs of being an equally avid supporter. He was always pleased to take me along to home game, then to a few away matches. I loved it. We were mates. He would always be there to lift me over the turnstiles, hoist me up on his shoulders, or find me a good spot in the front of the crowd where I would get the best view of the game. My mum comes from Bermondsey on the overside of the Thames, so her family always supported Millwall. So one week Dad would take me to a West Ham game, and the other week to Millwall. Plenty of variation, no animosity. But as I grew up and went to grammar school, I couldn't support two teams. It wasn't the done thing, especially two teams with such a strong rivalry and hatred, so I nailed my flag to the West Ham mast. At the age of 16, I got to know the real hardcore supporters, including Vicky Dark, who became a well-known bank robber, and loads of other mates, who shared not only a fixation with the Hammers, but also a taste for violence. Sheer, pointless, exhibitionist violence that was often seen on TV newsreels and condemned in Parliament. As impressionable teenagers, our big heroes were a hooligan gang known as the Mile End Firm, blokes in their 20s, grown me to us, who would cause aggravation by running mob-handed into rival supporters, end fighting, getting arrested, chanting their signature tune, Mile End, Mile End. I used to think, effing hell, they are the business, they are the boys. Then another firm came along, TBF, the Teddy Bunter firm, and they were just as crazy. I was in complete awe of them, and all I wanted to do was be as wild, as tough and as feared as them. So we started our apprenticeship in football terror. I wanted my firm to outshine all the others. We started doing little tests to prove our bottle to each other, like running single-handed into a crowd of 50 rival supporters and kicking off. It was a real buzz. At 16 years of age, fit, tough and fanatical. I set out to become the governor of the rowdiest bunch of football hooligans of all time. And that's how the intercity firm of West Ham was born. It was a name that sent a shudder through the local old bill. I wanted to be the boss. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be feared. I can't pretend the violence didn't play a part, because it did. I wasn't a violent kid away from football grounds, not a skinhead or anything always looking for trouble. but put me at a West Ham game and I became an animal. I played football myself. I loved all sport, went out with girls, but it all took a back seat to my thrill of football violence. I was a soldier, a tough marine, a commando, out there fighting for my team. I wanted the adulation of the fans. I wanted to be a name on the terraces. Top Gun. We started earning our stripes with a campaign of violence that shocked Britain. I remember on one occasion running into a pub in Coventry, which was full of rival supporters, jumping up on a pool table, picking up the cues and hitting out, throwing the balls and fighting with everyone in there. We would get through turnstiles at places like Sheffield Wednesday and make a run for the opposition end. We would go in, about 30 or 40 of us, fists flying, kicking out, using koshes, and we would be heroes. We would get pulled out by the old Bill and get frog marched past the away supporters, and they would all be cheering and clapping. The football itself was becoming unimportant. The violence was all-consuming. I was thrown out of game after game. But my standing amongst West Ham lads was getting higher and higher. I was a somebody. West Ham wasn't that brilliant a lot of the time, so I didn't miss a lot when I got the red card. I thought that if they haven't got the best footballers, then at least they've got the best fighters. From random attacks and sporadic outbursts of violence, football hooliganism became more organised. It became part of our culture, big time, and it was attracting people from all walks of life. Not every football hooligan is a brainless yob. Skilled people, professional people, get a buzz too. Raids on rival fans became carefully planned. There was an underground network of contacts that kept you posted on what was going on. Firms were calling themselves names like the headhunters and the bushwackers, and were all trying to outdo each other in the scale of violence. Our name, the Intercity firm, came about when we started to travel to away games via intercity expresses. We did this so that we didn't have to go on the specially organised football specials that were patrolled by the police, and you had to go wherever they said. We didn't want that. We wanted to be able to get off the train whenever we wanted, roam about the town, spring the element of surprise on the opposition, and do the maximum damage. A soap firm was doing a special travel offer at the time: 2 adults buy a ticket and 2 children go free. So we used to get the older people on the firm to act as our parents, and they would say that the younger kids were only 14 or something. Then we would all chip in with the fair money, and so we were getting to away games really, really cheaply. And the bonus was that we were able to stay clear of old Bill that were waiting at the other end, and storm in like an invading army from any direction. Our numbers were growing all the time, 30, 40, 50. We were becoming a formidable firm. Then we sussed out the student rail cards and started to buy cheap tickets. We were travelling all over the country as far as Liverpool and Newcastle. But the West Ham Bother boys didn't yet have a big name up north. We set out to change all that. We wanted to be the best organised football hooligan firm in the country. My mate Brett came up with the name Intercity, just for a joke at first. He made up stickers with the Intercity logo and scrawled on them, which we left everywhere. It said, "Congratulations, you've just met the ICF." Then we had a couple of battles with the opposition, and 2 of the geezers got knocked out. We left them on the deck with the ICF stickers on their heads. The name stuck. Our reputation for brutality and balls grew and grew, and I loved it. The papers picked up on it, and soon we were front page news as the nastiest bunch of hooligans in Britain. But we had some serious opposition, as rival fans tooled up with more dangerous weapons. On one raid up north to take on Newcastle's boldest, we arrived early and started on the booze in the home side's local pub called the Magpies. We had a skinful by match time, and we were wired up for trouble. We got in okay, and were put in an away supporters' pen, segregated from the Geordies by a wire fence. It was an unbelievable atmosphere. All of a sudden, the Geordie boys started throwing darts and sharpened coins over at us. One dart went so close I felt it brush my ear. That onslaught was followed, to everyone's amazement, by a petrol bomb being lobbed through the air in our direction. It whooshed like Halley's Comet, a great ball of fire heading straight at us. I don't know how they got it in the ground, but now we had it coming our way. We were penned in pretty tight, but we all managed to dive out of the way. One West Ham lad didn't quite get clear and had his trousers set alight, and one or two others got petrol burns. Nasty stuff by any standards. I jumped on the screaming lad who was on fire and rolled him over and over to put out the flames. He was okay, luckily, but he could have been scarred for life. The railways and the law enforcement agencies, the police, the railway police, club security staff, tried to stop us travelling away by making tickets first class only. So, we travelled first class. If we got banned from the trains altogether, then we would go by car or coach, any way we could to get there. We would meet up in the Britannia Arms, Plaistow, our battle headquarters, on a Friday night and hold a council of war to plan the next day's tactics. We had little hooligan platoons from all areas of East London, the towners and snipers from Canning Town, the Chads from Chadwell Heath, the Brits, us lot from Britannia, about 30 of us who did the planning. Everybody knew each other by name. Strangers wasn't welcome. When you got on the train the next day, you knew exactly who was there. You knew you were safe. My ambition was always to be up front, leading the attacks, being mad, getting the big reputation. I did crazy things to get recognition. I'd run into a hostile end on my own and have a Barney. Or I would go in with a small select team and hurt a few people. We would run through the crowd singing West Ham chants. A path would clear and people would point and say, "There they are, the ICF." To me, it was like pop star adulation. On visit to one of our arch enemies, Chelsea, I had been expecting the troops to be following me loyally into battle in the shed. But somehow, they didn't seem up for it. One by one they were slipping off for a piss, or buying a hamburger, or getting a drink. By the time we got to the segregation fence, there was only one geezer behind me. It kicked off when the Chelsea boys saw we were only two-handed. Suddenly, they're all trying to get me, digging and kicking and punching. I thought, I've got to get the F out of here. My shirt was ripped, my jeans pocket torn off, and the Chelsea mob were trying to drag me over the fence. Then some more of my boys turned up, and they grabbed my legs. So there I was, stuck on the fence like a effing great Christmas cracker, being pulled from both ends and about to explode. I got pulled over. Then I got pulled back. This went on for about 5 minutes. I was getting battered, and for the first time in my life I hoped that old Bill would move in and nick me. At least I would be out of the tug-of-war nightmare. Gradually I became more and more fearless, testing myself at every match, seeing what I could get away with and stay in one piece. Sometimes I got a kick in the bollocks, sometimes I got a good hiding, but all the time I was getting battle-hardened and loving it. You've got to be able to take a good hiding as well as dish it out. The more the authorities tried to stop us getting to games, the more genius ways we found to beat them. The easiest was our motors. We had a small fleet of cars between us. Big Granadas, Mark I Lotus Cortinas, that sort of thing, so we could load them with our firm and get anywhere we wanted. We would pull out the back seats before we left and shove a load of pool cues and chair legs underneath, ready for us at the other end. We would screw the seats back down again, so if the old Bill stopped us they wouldn't find anything that called an offensive weapon. We would pull in at a service station near the ground and get tooled up. Hooliganism was spiralling out of control. It was getting really, really spiteful. Football fans were loathed the world over. England's fans were seen as the shame of the nation. Politicians started calling for tougher penalties to wipe out the menace. I remember one weekend we borrowed a van belonging to a famous pop group, for whom a mate of mine was a roadie, and drove up to a Sunderland game. We left on a Friday night with a mattress in the back to sleep on and drove to Coventry. There were about 20 of us packed in there, and we all steamed into a local nightclub and got pissed up. It kicked off inside and we had a right decent punch-up. Then we drove on to Sunderland through the night and got there at about 6 in the morning, most of us sleeping in the back. We stopped at a service station for breakfast, then moved on to a pub. We had a ruck at the game when the police hadn't bothered to put any officers the other side of the gates, and we could run anywhere. Some of us, up the front of the attack, wore opposition scarves to fool the security and got amongst the enemy, something we had done successfully at Chelsea matches. Afterwards, we stopped off at Doncaster on the way back, and 4 coaches of Newcastle lads stopped. All we heard was, "You Cockney bastards." And all of a sudden, all of the windows came through. There was bricks and glass everywhere, and the owner was trying to stop people getting in. Then more West Ham lads turned up, and we got a good battle going. Another crazy weekend for the ICF. At this time, I was married, had a wife, a mortgage, and yet was still out there getting nicked, charged with threatening behaviour, caused an affray and GBH, and was under observation from the Football Intelligent Unit. I was even up in court 3 days before my wedding day. I revelled in the fear we brought to towns and cities all over the country, the way they shut the pubs and shops when they knew the ICF was in town, the way a path would clear through 10,000 fans as the 300 strong swaggered through the streets, standing our ground in the face of bombardments from snooker balls and bricks. There are many, many more stories that I have left out of this video. Carlton Leach and the ICF have been all over and had lots of adventures. The best thing to do is buy Carlton's book. I promise you won't put it down if you pick it up. There is so much more with the ICF. I will leave a link in the description if you are interested in buying his book, called Rise of the Foot Soldier. It's not just about the ICF, by the way. That is just one chapter of the book. But, for now, big respect to Carlton Leach, and whether you agree or not, West Ham are, and have been one of the biggest and best firms we have seen in England. See you next time. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.